In this video, I'm going to go over the essential facts about enzymes, for example, what they are, what they do, why we need them, and a few other important facts that you need to know about enzymes. So first we have, what are enzymes? Well, in a word, protein. They are proteins. Almost every single one of them is proteins. You might say, what about the others? Well, you won't come across those in any fundamental biology or chemistry class or anything like that, so don't worry about them. Or an enzyme could be more than one protein put together, but it's still made out of protein. Just as a reminder, what are proteins? They are strings of amino acids. So enzymes are strings of amino acids. When you name enzymes, I say many, but well, most, end in A's, or ASE. For example, the enzyme that breaks down lactose is called lactase. You can see how it ends in ASE. And then they're usually also named after a molecule that they work with. So since it has to do with lactose, we basically call it lactose, only we change it to an ASE. Sort of explains what it is and what it does, all in one word. So next, what do? They catalyze reactions. But what does the word catalyze mean? It means it makes it go faster. So enzymes make reactions go faster. In chemistry, we would say that the enzymes decrease the energy of activation. Now, that is a very sciencey term to go with this very sciencey picture, which basically means if you have energy on this axis, so basically the higher up the red line goes, the more energy we're needing. So by itself, this solid red line, you have to put in a lot of energy to go up this hill to make a reaction happen. And then you get to go down the hill, which is easy. But getting up the hill can be kind of difficult. This hill we call the energy of activation, or the activation energy. So think of how much energy it requires to walk up a hill that tall. Only if you have an enzyme, it basically makes the hill smaller. It makes it so that you only have to walk up a very small hill. You only have to put a very small amount of energy in to let the reaction get to the easy part. So, as you can imagine, it's a lot easier for us to come by just a little bit of energy and put just a little bit of energy in than it is to get all this energy together and do that. So, or for your analogy, it's a lot easier to walk up the small hill. So the enzymes make it easier because they make the hill smaller. They make the reaction go faster by making the little activation energy hill smaller. Why do we need them? Well, because if left alone, the reactions that our body makes happen and needs would not happen nearly fast enough to actually sustain life. There are so many countless examples for this. The example I picked is we need glucose. In fact, our brains must have glucose from one source or another. Now this glucose, it often comes from breaking it off something else. There's lots of things that have glucose in them, but we don't often eat just straight up glucose. For example, lactose has glucose and galactose stuck together. So our body wants to break off the glucose and use it in our brain. But if our bodies just sat around and waited for the glucose to break off on its own, in other words, for our bodies to accumulate that much energy needed to break the glucose off, we wouldn't get enough glucose. It would not be fast enough. Our brains would use glucose way faster than it would come because we're sitting around waiting for the glucose to walk all the way up this energy hill. Versus if we have an enzyme, our bodies can keep up with the constant demand for glucose by making it easier for the reaction to happen. So if it's easier to happen, it happens faster, it happens more often, and we can supply our brains with a lot more glucose. Otherwise, we would be brain dead or something. And a lot of other things would go wrong too. Other stuff about enzymes that you need to know, one of which is they are very specific. Their active sites, so the spot where the reaction actually takes place, will recognize only what it's meant to recognize. Nothing else, basically. So every reaction will have its very own enzyme to do it. For example, in this little picture here, you can see how this maltose, which is a sugar, would fit exactly in, for sake of pictures, this slot. This was what it's called a substrate, attaches exactly to the active site of this enzyme. Nothing else. If we have another molecule that's, I don't know, say triangle shaped, it's not going to fit here. You have to have the exact correct substrate in order for it to go to the exact correct enzyme. Very specific. So enzymes can be activated or deactivated. For example, if an enzyme is not needed, it'll probably be deactivated, versus if it's needed, it'll be activated. You can also, a lot of times, medications target enzymes. It's, say, enzyme is creating something new. It's breaking apart this some molecule, and making two different molecules. Now, say one of those molecules it's making is making you sick for whatever reason. In that case, it might be a good idea to shut down that enzyme so that it stops making the thing that's making you sick. So if you had a medication that could deactivate the enzyme, put it out of commission, you could potentially stop or slow down your body making something that's making you sick. Another thing you should know is that they can be denatured. So denatured is when they fall apart, basically. Normally, enzymes are like a wadded up ball of yarn that sticks together in its wadded up form. However, denaturing is when you take it and it's no longer wadded up, you lay it out all in a nice long string. It can't do anything when it's laid out like a piece of string. You have to put it together in its wadded up form. Things that can denature, or just string them out, are heat and chemicals. For example, think about fevers. When you have a fever, you have some sort of invading, say you have a bacteria that your body doesn't like, and is trying to fight it off. Now that bacteria needs its enzymes to do its work, to make you sick. But if your body heats up, like when you've got a fever, if it heats up, it's going to start denaturing or stringing apart all the bacteria's enzymes. If all the bacteria's enzymes are all strung out and not functioning, then whatever they were doing to you, they're not anymore, because all their little functional enzymes have quit working, and essentially you've killed the bacteria. Where do enzymes come from? Well, your body makes them. Like any protein, they are coded for in our DNA. Like when you have transcription and translation, your DNA has the code, you translate it into mRNA, and then transcribe it into a protein. And remember, enzymes are proteins, so they come from your DNA, essentially. And just because it's cool, I found a picture of what enzymes really actually look like. It's very colorful, but this is beta-galactosidase. And you can see all the stringy, sort of your ball of yarn. They form these little helices and these little sheets. So this is a nice, functional, folded beta-galactosidase.